Magnus Carlsen is arguably the greatest player of all time, and zero debate here, he's currently the best player on the planet. We can only dream to be at his level. Whether this is a gift or a curse, I'm certain the top 10 would like whatever X factor Magnus has, or whatever it is he injects into his veins. Just ask Hikaru. But for us mere mortals, Magnus has provided us with thousands upon thousands of games that, if broken down, can give us insights as to how to elevate our game. Mine and yours, hopefully. Let's hit it.
Welcome to Amazing Chess Games, a level up study.
So, as we go through the video, I will highlight important tactical, positional, and brilliant ideas in blue with a post-game checklist. The Stockfish eval is in the right hand corner, and timestamps are below. It's 12-year-old Magnus Carlsen versus a fellow junior in Andre Diamant. Magnus is only rated 2150 here versus a mid-2100 opponent. Oh, before I begin and before I forget, if you do find this content somewhat helpful and somewhat entertaining, please leave a like and subscribe. That'll be my gratitude. Let's get started. White starts with e4, c5 by black. Magnus plays as white, of course. Knight to f3, knight to c6, d4 for white, c takes d. Standard Sicilian stuff in here. Knight takes on d4, g6. This is the accelerated dragon. c4 by Magnus, true to his style. Of course, he wants active but prophylactic play, squeezing and clamping in on the d5 square there. Knight to f6 hitting here, and knight to c3. Here, d6 was played, opening up the diagonal for the bishop. Knight to c2. Magnus avoids the trade instead of developing here. He has plans, plans for positional stuff. Bishop to g7. And here, bishop to e2 by Magnus, just preparing to castle. Castle king, and then castle king by white. Both sides have finished their development. Here, knight to d7. It reroute for Diamant, either knight here, also likely placating the knight here, and you'll notice he's opened up the dark squared diagonal against Magnus. And here, bishop to d2 was played. This I will highlight in blue first, because it looks like a simple move, and it is, but it's also a simple move to avoid destruction of pawn structure. Because say, if instead of playing that move, Carlsen played bishop to e3, well, bishop takes on c3, takes on c3, knight to c5. According to Stockfish 16, everything is a-okay, but eyeing this position, you'll notice that these pawns are pawn islands, and more importantly, it's going to be hard to defend them later on in the game. This doubled pawn is an issue, and usually in human games, and why put yourself through that? Why ruin your structure? So, number one, pawn structure. To learn from Magnus's game, if you want to improve, more often than not, unless you know the variation, at which point you would not be looking at my videos because you're probably master level or way above 2000. Don't destroy your structure. Play like Magnus. Play bishop to d2. Protect this piece. And after knight to c5, Magnus plays b4. The whole idea of having the knight there on c2 is to boot out the other knight there. And after that move, he avoids any other issues there whatsoever. Now, mind you, this doesn't work, by the way, guys, because after takes, you're going to be up a piece and a powerful diagonal against your opponent. So none of that stuff. After b4, knight to e6. And now Magnus just activates the rook. Very slow activation there, but you'll see. Knight to d4. Magnus takes. Knight takes on d4. Now bishop to e3, asking the knight, where do you want to go and where do you want to take this game? The opponent takes a decently active piece in Magnus. Queen takes on e2, and now a5. The second kind of idea here to take from Magnus's game. Do you take it or not? Magnus does not take it, and that is an extremely simple but strong idea, which I'm going to highlight in blue. The reason being that this is so strong, at least if you don't understand the concept, is it restricts the rook. The whole point of the push there was, say Magnus took and takes, the eval bar goes completely even because you have 2-pawn islands. And now this rook, which was completely encased by its pawn, is now on the 5th rank. Why would you want to do that? So, play like Magnus, restrict your opponents with prophylaxis, and 2, a solid structure. It's 4 things he did, basically, with just a simple move. Now bishop takes on c3, rook takes on c3. Now Magnus's rook relative to the opponent's queen rook is in the 3rd rank and has achieved Luft. Luft is in, it's not in its original rank there. So if you need to double, you can do that. Here f6 was played. Not a lot of ideas for black here. And now Magnus plays c5, which I'm going to highlight. Point of the move is to bust open the d file here. And it's hard to play this as black, because say if you play bishop to e6, now you get pinned. You get pinned, you get pinned, you get pinned. What do? Say push, say go here. It doesn't matter. It's very hard to play this position. And it's one of those games where Magnus is just inching away at your king's throat, and you're like, how did that happen? But in this game, black just took on c5, rook to d1, and that is creating and having to use the open file. So take the open file. Queen to e8, and here Magnus creates his Weissenschug, because in this position, having a look at the bishop, bishop to h6, a move in between, just asking that rook where do you want to go, because the queen moved here. This is now currently the property of white. Rook to f7. Here Magnus, if you look at the eval bar, is up here, is quite up in position. He could play e5, squeezing, and after e6, takes. If you take, well then, good luck. This bishop is encased, that rook is encased. This is a nightmare. Instead, Magnus doesn't push here. He plays, the 12-year-old Magnus plays queen to c4, just pinning the king there on f7. So develops the queen, potentially here rook to d3, and now the opponent plays e5, trying to develop the bishop. But Magnus plays rook to d6. Now he's very direct here. He's saying, no counterplay for you, my friend. And here, bishop to d7, which is not a great... I mean, that's the only option you've got to activate the rook. His square is bad, clearly. Magnus just defends, and now rook to c8. Here, rook to d3. Magnus could also play rook takes on f6 because of the pin here. So classic Magnus, and that being when he was a kid and still now, he doesn't want to take material when he has the initiative. He wants to increase that initiative, and so he plays rook to d3. The king tries to sidestep, and Magnus just plays a simple h3. And just to put the king in a safe square if need be, but also the other idea behind that is the bishop is encased. These two rooks have not much use. The pieces are all tripping over each other, and this bishop is monstrously active. And here the opponent plays rook to c7. And after this move, I want to highlight another idea that Magnus shows, and he switches from initiative building, prophylaxis to tactics. And how does he do that? With the concept of back rank weaknesses. He plays the move b6. b6, highlighted in blue, hits a c7 square, which forces this rook and asks it, where do you want to go? But more importantly, because of the position of the bishop there on h6 and the back rank, which is currently weak because of that square, these two monster rooks and the queen slicing there. I know, too many arrows, but I have to show that. The rook can only go to c8 or to c6. And after rook to c8, Magnus sacrifices the queen. Why is that? Well, let's just see how the game goes. King safety is now a major issue with this move, and even though Magnus is down a queen, if you could call that, watch how this finishes. The queen has to relocate. Now Magnus tries to threaten checkmate with the move rook 2 at d7. If you try to challenge it, well, Magnus has thought of all of this. Now, as his tactical brilliance shows, because of the back rank weakness, bishop to g7. You have to take, and after takes, Magnus is up a rook, and a raging game is over. There's really no questioning it. Now, after queen to g8, opponent likely has seen all of this. After this move, queen to e6, trying to centralize the queen, defend that, but now Magnus threatens checkmate again. The opponent takes, and here Magnus, instead of taking with this, of course, has seen all of this and just plays rook to d8. The king cannot go to the square, so the queen has to defend. And Magnus finishes with basically pawn takes on c7. Actually, after rook to d8, the opponent resigned because of this. And it's mate in 2. If you take, that's a mate. If you do nothing, that's going to be takes, or just simply pile on c8. And that, my friends, is how 12-year-old Magnus plays chess. Boom. Quick recap. If there is anything we can take away from this game by Magnus, it's 1, the pawn structure. Don't destroy your pawn structure. Don't give yourself pawn islands. Don't give yourself weaknesses to defend later on. 2, prophylaxis. When the opponent tries to open the position by activating a piece or get piece activity, well, close that open file and perform prophylaxis. Number 3, create an open file for yourself and then capitalize. Put your rooks in there, double your rooks in there, and see what happens. And 4, well, if you keep making threats and put your opponent's king safety into a suspect position, a sus position, you can create things like, for this game, back rank weaknesses, at which point leads me to number 5. Calculate, calculate, calculate. Magnus, in the ending of the game, right when he sacrifices the queen, has calculated all the variations. It's basically forced. If it's not forced, you're in trouble. So, tactics, tactical practice, but the ideas presented by Magnus will hopefully help you boost your game, which will boost your ratings. And yeah, hopefully this video helps you out. Double peace.